Previously on The War That Made America. 20 years before he led a revolution, a young George Washington stumbled into a very different kind of war. His orders were to get the French to leave the Pennsylvania woods. But the Indians, the third force in this contest, had motivations of their own. Young Washington had no idea what events he'd set in motion. This incident in 1754 triggered a war that spread from these woods to the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, and India. The war's outcome would decide which of two great European empires would dominate North America. And caught in the middle were the Indians.
The French claim all the land on one side of the river, and the English claim everything on the other. Where does the Indian land lie?
The troops I have the honor to command will take Fort Duquesne and thereby remove the French from the forks of the Ohio.
General Edward Braddock intended to evict the French once and for all. George Washington was proud to be his aide. But it was the Indians who would decide the outcome of the battle. Overwhelming British manpower was no match for the guerrilla tactics of the French and Indians.
Hold your line, men! Hold your line!
What should have been a rout of the French turned into a surprise defeat of the British. Britain's future in North America was now in peril.
This program is made possible by Richard King Mellon Foundation, the Heinz Endowments, Eden Hall Foundation, National Endowment for the Humanities, and the following.
Britain has a new general. He's an influential Irish merchant with no military experience. But William Johnson has other qualifications: a strong grasp of native culture and politics, and a close friendship with the Mohawk chief, Te Anguin. At first, the two seem unlikely allies, but both are mavericks, unafraid to venture into the other's culture. Te Anguin has visited New York, Boston, and even London, and has acquired the Christian name Chief Hendrick. Johnson hopes Hendrick will help with an ambitious expedition he is planning. In recent years, the French have moved from Canada into territory the British consider their own. In the summer of 1755, Britain has a three-pronged strategy to move them back. While General Braddock marches on the Ohio country, other forces advance on Nova Scotia. Johnson's job is to take control of Lake Champlain. It's a bold strategy requiring considerable manpower. Before he met with disaster, Braddock had 2,200 British troops under his command. Johnson's army has none. Instead, he'll need Indians. So Johnson invites representatives of the Iroquois Six Nations to a council fire at his home. As a trader, Johnson has acquired a deep appreciation for the Indian custom of gift-giving. Now he spends a small fortune on trade goods. And he is not disappointed. 1,100 Indians show up to hear what the British have to offer. Through interpreters, Johnson tries to convince the delegates that the British are there for the Indians' own good.
Brethren, the King of England has sent to this continent with a large number of armed men, great guns, and implements of war to protect you and all his other subjects within these dominions from the insults and encroachments of the French.
Johnson reminds them of long ties between the Six Nations and the Crown.
These books testify that it is now 100 years since your forefathers and ours became known to each other. This covenant chain of love and friendship is the dread and envy of all your enemies and ours.
The Iroquois have long made it their policy to remain neutral. Johnson must persuade them to join his side.
By keeping it bright and unbroken, we have never spilt in anger one drop of each other's blood.
Johnson has prepared wampum, woven belts and strings that convey messages of war and friendship.
I give you this belt of wampum as a testament.
The speeches last for days, according to carefully prescribed protocol.
By this belt, we acknowledge the great King of England, our father, is the master, and we put our trust in him. We acknowledge our attachment to the English, and we hope you will keep it on your side and trust, as we will do on ours.
Go with me. My war kettle is on the fire. My canoe is ready to put in the water. My gun is loaded, my sword by my side. I desire and expect you will now take up the hatchet.
Johnson's more than just a diplomat. He has chosen to make his home among the Indians. Chief Big Business, as the Indians call him, would later marry an Indian woman and have several children of mixed race. Now he tries to capitalize on his long-standing friendship with Hendrik. For days, he entertains the Six Nation delegates: Mohawk, Onondaga, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. But what weighs on the minds of the delegates is the prospect of shedding Indian blood to fight for a white man's war. In the end, most refuse to break their neutrality.
I found all the nations, except the Mohawks, extremely averse to taking any part with us in the present active measures against the French.
His council fire ends in disappointment. Only Hendrik and 200 of his Mohawk warriors agree to fight with Johnson. Undermanned and behind schedule, Johnson leads his force to an encampment near the base of the lake the French call Saint-Sacrement, which Johnson renames Lake George in honor of the English king. From here, Johnson will cross over into Lake Champlain, where he plans to attack a strategic fort on the watery highway between New York and Canada. Johnson's force is made up of Hendrik's 200 Mohawk warriors and 3,000 men recruited from the colonies. A few days after arriving, Johnson orders Hendrik to lead a detachment of warriors and colonials to reinforce his position against the French. They're unaware they're walking into a trap. Canadian Mohawk, allied with the French, don't want to shed the blood of their fellow Mohawk from New York. One calls out to warn Hendrik of the impending peril.
Hey!
For a moment, they appeal to each other as Mohawk, not to fight a white man's war.
Some way on way, huh?
But the warning comes too late. Within minutes, Hendrik, 30 of his warriors, and 150 colonials are dead. The battle becomes known as the Bloody Morning Scout. Those who survive run 4 miles back to the encampment, where Johnson, never tested in battle, is directing the building of a hasty defense.
Come on, lads! Roll it in! Now! Now! Come on! Move! Come on now! Come on!
2 companies of French grenadiers form a column and charge the entrance to Johnson's camp.
Come on then! Adelante! That's me. Come on! Come on then!
By the time the French get within 75 yards, Johnson's men are ready.
Stand! Now! Fire!
The fighting continues throughout the day. The Battle of Lake George proves costly to both sides. Johnson's men succeed in forcing the French to retreat, but their mood is hardly victorious. Johnson has taken a musket ball in the backside. The Mohawk return home to mourn their dead. Johnson's men are too exhausted to go on. Unable to reach Lake Champlain, the best Johnson can do is build a fort securing his position at the base of Lake George. For the next 4 years, Lake George remains the front line between two empires. The 1750s are a dangerous time to be in the Pennsylvania backcountry for settlers and Indians. Mary Jemison's narrative survives as a vivid account of life on the frontier in those days.
Our family, as usual, was busily employed about their common business. Father was shaving an axe helve at the side of the house. My 2 oldest brothers were at work near the barn. A man that lived in our neighborhood took our horse to go to his house after a bag of grain. Mother was making preparations for breakfast with the little ones and myself.
Until a few years before, Indians and white settlers in the backcountry lived as neighbors, sometimes as friends, sometimes not. Now they were enemies. The war between the British and the French presented an opportunity for Indians to pursue their own agenda, to drive white settlers from lands they considered their own. So they attacked homesteads and took captives to frighten settlers into leaving. And there's another reason. Indians have long taken captives, both male and female, as a way to replace warriors killed in battle. And with the French and Indian War taking many more Indian lives, the need for captives is growing.
The party that took us consisted of 6 Indians and 4 Frenchmen. We traveled till dark without a mouthful of food or a drop of water. Towards evening, we stopped to encamp for the night. As soon as I had finished my supper, an Indian took off my shoes and stockings and put a pair of moccasins on my feet, which my mother observed. I can remember her words. My dear little Mary, I fear that the time has arrived when we must be parted forever. Your life, my child, I think will be spared, but we shall be tomahawked in this lonesome place. Be careful, and do not forget your English tongue.
For Indians, scalps carry great significance. In taking scalps, warriors appropriate the spiritual power of their victims. Victims like Mary Jemison's family.
The Indians took from their baggage a number of scalps and went about preparing them by the fire. Those scalps I knew. My mother's hair was red, and I could easily see the children's from each other. That sight was most appalling, yet I was obliged to endure it without complaining. In the course of the night, they made me to understand that they should not have killed the family if the whites had not pursued them.
While the advance on Lake George ended in stalemate, Braddock's forces had met with disaster. When they retreated, the British frontier was left undefended from North Carolina to New York. Left in charge of this dangerous territory is a new Virginia regiment, made up exclusively of colonials. In command is George Washington. He's only 23, but he's learning to be a leader of men. His regiment has an impossible task. There are too few men to secure such a long frontier. Washington complains to Virginia's governor that his men are not getting the support they deserve.
Your Honor may see to what unhappy straits the distressed inhabitants and myself are reduced. The melancholy situation of the people, the little prospect of assistance, the gross and scandalous abuse cast upon the officers in general, which is reflecting upon me in particular.
Washington intends to train his men until they perform as well as British regulars, and he hopes one day to be rewarded with a royal commission. Yet he worries that this may never happen.
The distant prospect, if any, of gaining honor and reputation in the service causes me to lament the hour that gave me a commission, and would induce me, at any other time than this of imminent danger, to resign, without one hesitating moment. From this command, I can never expect to reap either honor or benefit.
At the start of Braddock's campaign, Washington had volunteered as the general's aide. At the side of a master, he had glimpsed the art of strict military discipline.
Discipline is the soul of an army. It makes small numbers formidable, procures success to the weak and esteem to all.
It's discipline, Washington believes, that will turn his Virginia regiment into an elite fighting force. His men are a mix of immigrants and vagrants. Insubordination and desertion are rampant. Washington takes two deserters and decides to send a message to his troops by making their punishment a public spectacle. Your Honor will, I hope, "Excuse my hanging instead of shooting them," Washington later tells Virginia's governor. It conveys much more terror to the others. "It was for example's sake that we did it." Washington was taking the discipline of the British Army as his model. He wanted to make his colonial soldiers as professional as redcoats, the best soldiers of his day. Not all colonials had the same ambition. Unlike Washington, New England officers did not admire the British Army's practice of discipline. They worried that if they were placed under direct British command, they could be flogged or hanged just like the redcoats were. For this reason, they took their enlistment contracts very seriously, as a guarantee that they would not be required to serve under any officers but their own. New Englanders argued that if the terms of their enlistments were violated, it would be grounds for them to dissolve the colonial army altogether. In July 1756, Lieutenant General John Campbell, the Earl of Loudoun, arrives to take Braddock's place as Commander-in-Chief of His Majesty's forces. Like Braddock, he expects colonial soldiers to serve under his command. He's in for a rude awakening. At his headquarters in Albany, Loudoun is kept waiting, a new experience for his lordship.
Where is he?
Loudoun has summoned the head of colonial forces, Major General John Winslow, to explain the New Englanders' stubbornness.
I desire to be informed by you whether the troops now raised by the several provinces and colonies of New England, and armed with His Majesty's arms, will, in obedience with His Majesty's commands, act in conjunction with His Majesty's troops under the command of myself, His Commander-in-Chief.
Your lordship may be assured that I shall ever be ready to obey your commands. My fellow officers are ready and willing to act in conjunction with His Majesty's troops and put themselves under your lordship's command, provided the terms and conditions of enlistment established and agreed upon be not altered. Your lordship must be informed that any alterations in the terms and conditions of the contract of enlistment will result in the dissolution of the army.
The only thing that will result in the dissolution of the army will be the insubordination of your forces. That will be all, sir. Good day.
My lord.
Loudoun senses something larger is going on in America. He says in disgust, "I believe they would be looked on at home as little less than fomenters of rebellion." The French also have a new general, Louis-Joseph, the Marquis de Montcalm. He too is having problems with the forces who are supposed to be fighting with him. Though he comes personally to court his allies, to Montcalm's European eye, the Indians look like barbarians.
You would not believe it, but they carry to war, along with their tomahawk and gun, a mirror to daub their faces with various colors and arrange feathers on their heads and rings in their ears and noses.
While the Iroquois in New York maintain their neutrality, the Indians in Canada have long been allies of the French and are more than willing to go to war. But the new French general doesn't seem to appreciate his allies.
One needs the patience of an angel to get on with them. Ever since I have been here, I have had nothing but visits, harangues, and deputations of these gentlemen. The Iroquois ladies did me the honor to bring me belts of wampum, which oblige me to go to their village and sing the war song. They make war with astounding cruelty, sparing neither women nor children.
Montcalm may not like them, but he intends to use them when he goes on the offensive. Mary Jemison's journey reflects that of many captives. Abducted on the Pennsylvania frontier by the Shawnee, she is taken 70 miles to live with the Seneca.
I was so much fatigued from running, and so far benumbed by the wet and cold, that I expected I must fail and die. The fire, however, soon restored my circulation. My clothes were now torn in pieces, so that I was almost naked. They first undressed me. Then they washed me clean and dressed me in complete Indian style. All the women in the town came to see me, and they immediately set up a most dismal howling, crying bitterly and wringing their hands in all the agonies of grief for a deceased relative.
Our brother, he is dead. He's gone. He will never return.
Indians take captives for many reasons: as a weapon against encroaching settlers, as ransom for guns or trade goods, but also for spiritual reasons, to replace warriors killed in battle.
Dry up your tears. His spirit has seen our distress and sent us a helper whom with pleasure we greet. Dikewamis has come, and gladly we welcome her. In the place of our brother, she stands in our tribe.
I was made welcome amongst them as a sister. They called me Dikewamis, which means two voices falling.
While Braddock was suffering defeat and Johnson's campaign was ending in stalemate, the British achieved military victory in Nova Scotia, formerly the French colony of Acadia. They drive French forces from the region. The British governor is determined to ensure that the territory remains securely in British hands. He orders the systematic expulsion of all French-speaking settlers from the region. Acadians, who had called the land home for a century, are dispossessed of their farms and fishing boats. Whole villages are emptied, and families herded to the coast. The operation is carried out with chilling efficiency. Over the next 3 years, 10,000 of them are shipped to the British colonies. Many Acadians make their way to Louisiana, where they become known as Cajuns. But the following year, Britain meets with disaster in the west when they attempt to drive the French from Fort Niagara. The British head slowly up the Hudson River from New York. Meanwhile, Montcalm's forces travel to St. Lawrence from Montreal. The French stop the British advance at Fort Oswego. With the help of 250 Indians, the French capture the fort in just 3 days. After the battle, the Indians take the trophies of war. Plunder and captives are proof to their people that their enemies have been defeated. What the Indians consider their code of honor, Montcalm regards as savagery, breaking all the rules of European warfare. He agrees to pay ransom for the British captives and vows to restrain the Indians next time. The following year, Montcalm mounts an assault on Lake George. This time, 2,000 warriors go with him. In August 1757, 150 Indian canoes accompany an armada of French bateaux gliding down the lake. It's a formidable force. Along with the Indians are nearly 6,000 French regulars and Canadian militiamen. They are surging by land and water toward Fort William Henry, the fort William Johnson built after the Battle of Lake George. During the night of August 2nd, lookouts at the fort spot 3 large bonfires several miles up the shoreline. In the dawn light, lookouts begin to make out the oncoming armada. In the middle of the fleet, they see 30 pontoons, bateaux lashed together with planks, each carrying a heavy siege cannon or mortar. From the fort, the British realize Montcalm is setting up an encampment near the lakeshore. But they don't yet realize that an advance party, 3,000 strong, has already set up 2 more camps in the woods, close to the fort's provincial encampment and the fort itself. The British are surrounded. For the fort's commander, Lieutenant Colonel George Monroe, the situation is desperate. He writes to his superior, General Daniel Webb, imploring him to send more troops.
We know they have cannon. I make no doubt but that you'll soon send us reinforcement as soon as possible. The large French force nearby is planning to attack the fort. Without additional men from Webb, we can only hold out a few more days. This place was so suddenly surrounded. The French have not yet erected their batteries, but the Indians have been firing upon us from the woods all day.
Monroe's letter is delivered by courier to General Webb, 16 miles down the road at Fort Edward. Meanwhile, both sides gird for a classic European-style siege. Under a French red flag of truce, Montcalm's aide-de-camp, Louis-Antoine de Bougainville, approaches Fort William Henry.
Compagnie! Halt!
To your commanding officer, from General Montcalm.
In accordance with European military protocol, Montcalm offers Monroe a chance to surrender before the battle begins. As leverage, he invokes the memory of the Indians' behavior at Fort Oswego.
I owe it to humanity to summon you to surrender. At present, I can restrain the natives and make them observe the terms of a capitulation, as I might not have the power to do under other circumstances. I demand a decisive answer within an hour.
Demand a decisive answer within an hour.
Still waiting for reinforcements from Webb, Monroe responds.
General Montcalm, I am especially obliged to you for the kind offers that you made me, but I cannot accept them. I am little afraid of barbarity.
Besides, I have under my orders soldiers who are determined, like myself, to die or conquer. We will fight to the last extremity.
Montcalm needs to get his cannons into firing range. He orders his troops to dig a network of trenches. 500 men work round the clock for 3 days, digging their way toward the fort. By daylight, Monroe's forces do what they can to disrupt the French efforts.
Handle cartridge! Charge cartridge! Ram cartridge! Right! Advance the piece! Ready! Fire!
Monroe continues to expect news of reinforcements at any moment. The next day, General Webb finally returns the courier with his reply. Care had been taken to hide Webb's letter, but its discovery gives the French the upper hand. On the morning of August 6th, the siege opens as it had the previous 2 days, with the British bombardment directed at the French advance. But Montcalm's trenches are at last within range of the fort. This time, the French answer back with a burst of cannon and mortar rounds. From exposed positions just outside the fort walls, Indian snipers harass the British gunners. casualties in the fort are mounting. The French artillery proves devastating. At one point, they hit the fort's flag. When a carpenter attempting to repair it is killed, the symbolism is not lost on either side. Montcalm chooses this moment to suspend the bombardment. He again sends Bougainville forward to propose the British surrender. Bougainville delivers Webb's blood-stained message found on the courier. Only then does Monroe learn that Webb thought it not prudent to send reinforcements. Instead, Webb had advised Monroe to get the best surrender terms possible.
From General Montcalm. I am sorry for you, sir. I hope General Webb's letter will persuade you to surrender the sooner.
I thank you, Captain Bougainville, for your politeness. You've been a most generous enemy. It has been my pleasure.
Advance the peace! For God's sake, fire!
According to the etiquette of siege warfare, Monroe can surrender with honor only after the fort's walls have been breached. With the walls losing timber, the fort's engineer reports to Monroe. The structure may not hold for long. More importantly, the morale of Monroe's men is shattered. Most have had little sleep for 5 days. Surrender is Monroe's only choice. Montcalm designs the terms of surrender to avoid repeating the events at Fort Oswego the year before. To prevent the Indians from taking captives, the British will be granted safe passage from the fort. Provisions and supplies will go to Canada. The British may keep their personal effects. The Indians can take what's left. Montcalm gathered the war chiefs together. Then he told them he'd allow them none of the plunder or prisoners they expected. They listened politely, but they felt betrayed. Many had died fighting alongside their French allies, and they expected to return to their people with the honors of war. Then Montcalm further insults the Indian code of honor by sitting down to a banquet with the defeated, to which they are not invited.
Gentlemen, a toast. to our worthy opponent.
That afternoon, British officers entertained their French counterparts with an impressive spread of delicacies served with wine and beer. The Indians are quickly beginning to see a European conspiracy. At dawn on August 10th, the British regulars begin to leave, escorted by French grenadiers. Trailing the regulars is a long, disorganized line of colonial soldiers and camp followers. The Indians are not about to let what they felt they'd earned simply walk away.
The savages surrounded us, and even took my horse, which I had given to carry off the gun. The French advised giving up our effects, rather than dispute with the savages.
Hold your weapons, gentlemen. Offer no resistance. Surrender all your effects. Surrender all your effects, gentlemen. Offer no resistance!
Soldiers immediately delivered up everything to them. They took our hats and swords and began to strip us. This unexpected treatment, so contrary to the terms of the capitulation, struck so great a panic in the troops, who knew not where it would end.
But soldiers in the front are spared the worst of what comes next. New England troops at the back are set upon from every side. The killing, scalping, and looting lasts only a few minutes. When it was over, wildly exaggerated reports of 1,500 dead fueled outrage among New England colonists. The truth is, about 75 were killed. Of the 500 taken captive, many are ransomed back within a few days. Most of the Indians go home, disgusted and empty-handed, threatening to abandon the French. What should have been a resounding victory instead leaves Canada in crisis. Because if the French can't keep their Indian allies, they can't win the war for North America.
To the front! March!
Next time on The War That Made America, Britain vows to defeat the French, whatever the cost. But it's the Indians who hold the key to victory. And young George Washington learns some bitter lessons. The war that made America, it's not the war you think it is. This program was made possible by Richard King Mellon Foundation, the Heinz Endowments, Eden Hall Foundation, National Endowment for the Humanities, and the following.